In the late 1940s, as part of the United Kingdom's military response to the rapid expansion of the Soviet Navy and their ever-evolving submarines, the Royal Air Force called out for a new aircraft capable of long-range maritime patrol. From the Avro manufacturer's drawing board, the Shackleton emerged as the request's winner. Developed from the Avro Lincoln bomber, itself a development from the wartime Avro Lancaster, the Shackleton was an aircraft with years-proven technology. Named after renowned polar explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton, Avro's latest aircraft lived up to its namesake, as it patrolled all over the United Kingdom colonies for decades, performing a wide array of missions, including convoy escorting, supply dropping, photo-reconnaissance, communication relaying, ground attack missions, short-term bombing operations, and more. With a characteristic loud growling noise, the Avro Shackleton would become one of the world's most iconic maritime reconnaissance aircraft. Lessons from the depths. The Battle of the Atlantic during World War II was a brutal classroom, with the Kriegsmarine, Germany's navy, serving harsh lessons to the Royal Navy. In this period, the rise of diesel-electric submarines and the innovation of the snorkel effectively allowed submarines to remain submerged throughout their patrols. All across the theater, especially in the early stages, British shipping losses massively escalated due to German surface raiders and submarines. Royal Air Force aircraft, previously highly effective, suddenly found themselves struggling. In the ensuing years, a number of Avro Lancaster strategic bombers were quickly converted to act as temporary maritime search and rescue and general reconnaissance aircraft. However, as the war drew to a close, the Royal Air Force's Coastal Command had shrunk to just a third of its original size. As the Cold War began not long after, the need for a long-range, high-endurance maritime reconnaissance platform resurfaced, this time to keep a watchful eye over the North Atlantic against the rapidly expanding submarine force of the Soviet Navy. In late 1945, the Air Staff outlined their need for such an aircraft. As requested by the Royal Air Force, the new aircraft should be capable of a 3,000 nautical mile range and carry up to 6,000 pounds of weapons and equipment. Among many proposals, the most eye-catching was led by Avro's chief designer at the time, Roy Chadwick, who led the effort to produce the Avro Type 696, an aircraft built mainly from the Lincoln model to meet these requirements. Introducing the Shackleton. The Avro proposal, initially dubbed the Lincoln ASR-3, then Type 696, was eventually known as the Avro Shackleton. It was the first dedicated 4-engine long-range maritime patrol aircraft for the Royal Air Force's Coastal Command. As the last in the line of Avro's classic heavy bombers, the Lancaster and Lincoln, the Shackleton's design took cues from its predecessors, but also introduced new configuration elements. Keeping the Lincoln's wings and landing gear, the Shackleton sported a larger, rounder, and shorter fuselage. Measuring 87 feet in length with a wingspan of 120 feet, it could accommodate a crew of 10. In addition to the Lincoln, the Shackleton also borrowed design elements from the Avro Tudor passenger aircraft and was furnished with the era's state-of-the-art electronic suites for the anti-submarine warfare role, along with a much improved crew environment to accommodate the long mission times often involved in patrol work. To take down Soviet submarines, the aircraft housed two 20mm cannons in the nose, and its internal bomb bay could hold torpedoes, mines, and bombs, depending on the mission's requirements. Power came from 4 Rolls-Royce Griffon liquid-cooled inline engines, each fitted with 2 3-blade propellers in a contra-rotating setup, marking a first for British 4-engine aircraft. During the initial development, chief designer Chadwick passed away in an accident. However, the project continued without pause, and the first Avro Shackleton took to the skies on March 9, 1949, with test pilot J.H. Jimmy Orrell at the controls. The first production model, the Maritime Reconnaissance 1, or MR-1, was introduced to the Royal Air Force's 120th Squadron in March 1951. 5 more squadrons were equipped with the aircraft, and an additional 3 models were assigned to air-sea warfare units. At the time, the MR-1 Shackletons were seen as an interim solution due to a few shortcomings discovered during testing. Yet, despite these challenges, the Shackleton, in all its subsequent variants, was deployed by the RAF Coastal Command as part of the NATO requirements for Atlantic patrols. thus becoming the primary long-range maritime patrol platform in the early years of the Cold War. The upgrade. The Avro Shackleton Maritime Reconnaissance's second variant, MR2, came into service in 1953, with some Air Force squadrons operating both models simultaneously. This new and improved version featured many refinements, including an upgraded radar, a reinforced undercarriage, a lengthened nose and tail section, and more. The Avro Shackleton, particularly the second upgraded model, was deployed worldwide, particularly in Royal Air Force colonial policing operations throughout the decades. Soon after entering service, the Avro Shackleton, with its top speed of 300 miles per hour, earned the nickname the Growler, on account of the loud engine noise from the 4 Rolls-Royce Griffon engines. The first operational deployment of this model happened in 1955, when the Avro Shackleton acted as troop transport aircraft during British Army movements to the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. Less than a year later, the aircraft was thrown into combat deployment as the United Kingdom was involved in one of the largest conflicts of the Cold War. Debut. In 1956, Egypt, then still under British control, was embroiled in drama when its president nationalized the Suez Canal, a vital maritime route controlled by the United Kingdom and France. Responding to this, Israel, backed by the UK and France, invaded Egypt with the goal of regaining control of the canal for the Western powers. In Operation Musketeer, the Avro Shackleton played a significant part, mainly in the maritime reconnaissance role. The Shackletons were used for extensive maritime patrols, locating, tracking, and reporting on naval movements in the Mediterranean, especially those of the Egyptian Navy, delivering crucial information back to the British and French navies for further strategic planning. In addition to reconnaissance, the Shackletons were also used for search and rescue operations for downed pilots and crews. Evolving with the times. The Avro Shackleton maritime patrol aircraft's strength was proven to the main public in 1960, when during an exhibition in Farnborough, each day the model would take off at the start of the air show and successfully return 24 hours later. Throughout the decade, the standard Shackleton crew comprised 2 pilots, 2 navigators, 1 flight engineer, 1 air electronics officer, and 4 air electronics operators. After complaints from several of these squadrons about the Growler and further equipment upgrades for the ever-evolving submarine technology, airframe fatigue issues led to the production of the Mark III. The Shackleton III added greater overall capabilities with improved ailerons, wingtip tanks, better crew quarters in the shape of an increased fuselage, and a new tricycle undercarriage. The most important new feature was a new payload fit for the times, which included homing torpedoes and Mark 101 Lulu nuclear depth bombs. However, with all these new upgrades, a heavier takeoff weight needed further assistance, leading to the introduction of Armstrong-Siddeley Viper Mark 203 turbojets. Despite all 3 models, several problems encountered by crews during its operational service were present in all variants. Amongst the issues were unreliable engines, hydraulics, and elements of the avionics, and the aircraft also proved to be fairly maintenance-intensive. By the late 1960s, the Shackleton was being replaced by the Hawker-Siddeley Nimrod jet patrol aircraft. However, this Grand Dame was not finished yet. Swan Song. The blueprint for a Shackleton 4 model existed as part of a plan to meet a Canadian request for a long-range patrol aircraft. This model would have been a departure from the norm, sharing only the nose, cockpit, and outer wings with earlier variants. However, this project was eventually shelved. Beyond its service in the Royal Air Force, 8 Avro Shackletons were consigned to the South African Air Force, assigned to monitor Soviet vessels navigating the Cape of Good Hope. These aircraft were on active duty until 1984. One standout incident involved the South African Air Force's Shackletons during the SS Wafra oil spill. In an unusual mission, they were tasked with sinking a stricken oil tanker using depth charges to halt further ecological damage. In the aftermath of the decommissioning of the Fleet Air Arms Ferry Gannet aircraft, a dozen Shackletons were repurposed as airborne early warning models. In 1971, they were thrust into service to monitor the North Sea and Northern Atlantic, adapting to a fresh role in the Cold War and extending their service life in the process. During the conversion, the MR2's radome was swapped out for an AN APS-20 radar unit situated ahead of the weapons bay. Numerous internal modifications were also made to house electronic gear and radar operators. Starting in 1974, the Shackleton AEW-2 conducted missions over the North Sea, Arctic Ocean, and Western Atlantic. As the intended successor, the British Aerospace Nimrod AEW-3 faced a series of development hurdles. The final Shackleton didn't retire until 1991, when it was supplanted by the Boeing E-3D Sentry. During its lifespan, although Avro produced fewer than 200 Shackletons across all its variants, in theory, the British long-range maritime patrol aircraft effectively served for 4 decades, almost the entire duration of the Cold War.